the B-2 bombing 12 MOP bombs on Fordo Com facility and 2 other bombs on the facility that maybe this enriched uranium was there, were a great success.
Mainstream media gives you the impression that there is nothing good about America. In direct contrast to that, my podcasts will prove by examples that America has always been and still is the land of opportunity for everyone.
Hello, and welcome to another episode in the series Life Lessons with Dr. Bob. My guest today is Jacob Nagel, a man who is so unique and knowledgeable about events in Israel that we've invited him back for this, his third time. We previously interviewed Jacob in both March and April of this year, months before the very recent 12-day war with Iran. You can watch those interviews in episodes number 65 and 66. Today, we'll be seeking his insights on that war and what the defeat of Iran means for the future of Israel and the Middle East. For those of you who haven't seen either of the prior episodes with Jacob, I'm going to now briefly review his background, which will build credibility for what he'll be speaking about today. Jacob's military career in the Israel Defense Forces, the IDF, began in 1979 when he joined the elite 8200 unit that is responsible for cyber warfare. In the following 19 years, he rose to the rank of brigadier general and retired from the IDF in 1996. Directly after retirement, Jacob transitioned into leadership roles in national security, including head of military R&D with the Ministry of Defense, head of Israel's National Security Council from 2016 to 2017, and most recently, just last year, he was appointed by Prime Minister Netanyahu to chair a committee to evaluate Israel's defense strategy and its budgetary needs for the coming decade. The 130-page report, appropriately named the Nagel Committee Report, was presented to the Prime Minister in January this year. One very important recommendation of the Nagel Report is that Israel must change its military strategy from one of containment of its enemies to preemption, to take military action against its enemies before they can strike. And as we now know, the Netanyahu government accepted that recommendation, as shown by Israel's preemptive strike on Iran earlier this month. In summary, throughout his career, Jacob Nagel has been and still is instrumental in shaping Israel's defense strategies and technological advancements, both of which have significantly enhanced the security of the State of Israel for the past 40 years. Jacob, welcome once again to the show.
Thank you very much, and thank you for this introduction. I'm really humbled. And again, it's never one-man show. It always was and will be a team effort in the Ministry of Defense, in the National Security Advisor, and of course in my IDF services before. Some of the things that we worked on for the last 15, even 20 years, really matured in the last few years, and especially in the last few months in the war that Israel is doing now.
Okay, let's start with the change in Israel's military strategy. As I understand it, for many years, Israel's military strategy was to have a very strong military that would deter its enemies from attacking, because the enemies would know that Israel's response would be very painful. What caused you to recommend in your report that Israel dramatically changed that strategy to one of preemption?
When you read this file, and unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, most of the people are reading the unclassified one. The biggest change between the unclassified and the classified one is about Iran and about the systems that Israel should have in order to defeat Iran from becoming a nuclear power or a nuclear threat to Israel and to the United States and the world. So I'm really glad that some of the change was adopted. Of course, some of our recommendations are for many years in advance. And I'm telling you now, even so, I'm sending this message to the people that will watch this show, mostly in Israel. There are voices now in Israel saying, okay, the recommendation of the Nagel Committee are adopted. We did great work against Iran. Iran is not an enemy and not a threat anymore. And especially around us, the Hezbollah, the biggest, it's one of the ends of the cat. If Iran is the head of the cat, someone talks about the 4 or 5, ends.
Usually
Of the
they
cat.
refer to an octopus and the arms of the octopus, but go ahead.
Some people octopus,
Yeah.
some people cat.
Well, cats only have
because,
two hands. That doesn't make sense. Octopus has many arms.
Because I know because I know you love cats. I changed it to cats. And in Israel we might Prime Minister Netanyahu used the cat much before we moved to the octopus and tentacles. He used the cat for many years, and he always said it's enough to cut the end of the cat, and he mostly talked about Hezbollah in the north, that every time when he did something, we just responded to the north, and we didn't do anything with Iran. This one ends in the last few weeks, and it was, of course, the Israeli homeland and everyone in Israel suffered a very terrified 2 weeks, a lot of the damage to property, even 29 people dead. Believe me, it's everyone that died is a big loss, but it's much, 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 much lower than the anticipations of what will happen. Again, some of the anticipation was because before we changed our strategy also in the north, we were sure that when there will be a war with Iran, the Hezbollah will also join it and will use its huge 200,000 missiles that, fortunately enough, in the war in Lebanon in the last few months before we finished and came to a ceasefire, we eliminated most of their firepower in Lebanon, of course, on the border with Israel. Now we have a ceasefire, and we see it's working. Well, I'm sure we'll come later on what will be the next step of Iran.
Of course. I still want to understand what caused you. Well, okay, you're saying the threat from Iran caused you to change your view and to recommend that we act preemptively. But I think the attack by Hamas on October 7th of 2023 also was extremely important in teaching Israel that just being strong isn't enough. Trying to deter the enemy isn't enough. We have a very strong military, yet we were attacked by Hamas. So I think that also played a role in Israel adopting this preemptive strategy. Is that correct?
You're totally right. It was the Hamas, and then it was Israeli understanding that if we won't change our doctrine, the original plan can happen, because the original plan of Khamenei and his proxies in our area was to start with using the Hezbollah, very, very, very effective and strong arm of what we call the Radwan forces that planned to invade Israel in the north and take some of our villages, people kill, butcher, rape. Believe me, if it would happen in the north and not in the south, the outcome would be 10 times more devastating.
Right, right.
So we understood this we cannot do, so we did it in the north. But what really, really very happened in the last few months, that we understood that Iran decided to change its doctrine or work, and we saw many, many, many signs that they are going to build, or they are going to be more ready in the nuclear part of their role. We know that Khamenei plan, and we talked about it a lot in our previous podcast, his program or his plan was to kill Israel using conventional missiles, using conventional power with an umbrella of a nuclear bomb. We understood that Iran with a nuclear bomb will be a total big threat to Israel, but also to the world, because they are also starting to build a huge army or huge
Inventory.
capabilities
Yeah.
of the ballistic missiles.
Yeah.
They talked about 10,000 ballistic missiles. Some of them are intercontinental ballistic missiles, meaning missiles that can reach Europe and the US. And if there will be a nuke, an atomic bomb on the head of one of those missiles, it's very, 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 very threatful to the world. So Israel decided, exactly as you just mentioned, it started in Hamas, but it continued in the war against Hezbollah. Assad fought without us making part of it, but for sure, his fall is part of the changes that happened in our area, in Hamas and in Gaza and in Lebanon. So we decided now it's time to go to the head of the cat, or the octopus. You can choose the animal that you want. And Israel really planned a lot of deception was there, because if you do a preemptive strike, you have to make sure that the other side is not expecting you to do it in this day. Things that I couldn't talk in our last episodes. For example, the plan to kill the scientists.
So Israel was prepared to act preemptively. Why did they choose to do it when they did, which was exactly one day after the 60-day time frame that Trump wrote in his letter to Khamenei? So why did they choose to do it that day?
Look, I don't know, but it was a very, very nice and important, anecdote, that it was on the day, the 61 day of Trump. And when it helped us to take Trump to be part of our plan, it was great. I'm not sure that this day, being the 61st day of the deadline, played a big role, but for sure it played a very important role. The most important thing is that if you read our recommendations and our Israeli national security strategy, everyone was asking us I remember 2012, 13, when there was the negotiations on the horrible JCPOA, when you are going to attack Iran, because there were talks there. Remember that in those days, I don't want to say most, because it was almost all the defense establishment was against Prime Minister Netanyahu and his Minister of Defense, Barak. Those days that, I don't like Barak views today, but in those days, he was part of the cabinet, and he was part of the people that recommended and supported the strike on Iran then. Now, coming back to 2025, because when everyone was asking then us when you are going to attack, we said we are going to attack when we'll come to the decision that tomorrow it will be too late. So when we attacked in the last months, believe me, we came to the decision that we cannot wait anymore. Today we have to attack, because tomorrow it can be too late, because tomorrow Iran and its facilities the IRGC, those people that are around the commander, the military, and every facility in Iran that were always, all of them were, coordinated toward going forward to build a nuclear bomb, to develop the technological capabilities.
I think the timing was perfect. They couldn't do it during the time when the Trump administration was in active negotiations with Iran. Couldn't do it then because that would really piss off President Trump and Witkoff or whoever, and with bad results. So I think they had to wait till that series of negotiations were over, but before they restarted them, because they would have restarted them,
Exactly.
right? So it was the perfect timing. Now, wait.
You're totally right. This part, you're totally right. Israel did not want to attack Iran while there are negotiations, and it was a great timing that there are no negotiations. There are negotiations. There was negotiation about the next part of negotiations,
Right.
but they were not inside the negotiation.
Perfect. Now, the attack was incredibly successful. More than 200, as I understand it, more than 200 Israeli jets were involved, flying hundreds of sorties. They bombed 100 targets in 12 days, and not one jet was downed. No enemy fire. A very complex operation that required multiple refuelings of each jet to reach Iran, which is far away, and then to return. They had to be refueled again just to return. Were you surprised at the degree of Israel's success?
I was sure it will be a success before, but I remember some talking about what can be, the results of this attack in casualties, in as you said, in jets, in, maybe pilots going down and being captured and other things. It was amazing, and I think this attack would be learned in war schools for the next 100 years. So much of, as you just explained, 1,500 kilometers from Israel, the amazing, very, very, very accurate intelligence that we had. It's not something that happened in a few days. It's something that happened in a lot of years, 10 to 20 years. And of course, was supposed to be accurate the moment that you attack. Coordinating all those sorties, all those, I would call things that we used, facilities and weapons and others that we use. Not all of them are out for the public, and it's very good that are not out. But to organize, to coordinate, to do all of this together successfully in one sortie, one big sortie, and to eliminate more than, people say 11, 10, 15, it's around 15. The most important ranked scientists that worked on the nuclear program, to kill almost all the Air Force commanding the people, together with this guy Hajizadeh that we mentioned in the last episode, the one that was standing and, telling to his people in October 24, and then in March 24, and then in October, go and kill the state of Israel. He was the head of the Air Force of the IRGC. Him and his all commanding people together with him. The commanding people on of the army, the chief of staff, the chief of intelligence, the chief of almost every chief of is out now.
No, wait. So I think everybody, two key elements of the successful bombing were the actions that Israel took prior to the bombing campaign. First of all, it destroyed Iran's radar and anti-aircraft systems, and also, as you said, eliminated many of Iran's military leaders and nuclear scientists. So that was done before they, right after that, they immediately started the bombing.
It was part of the attack. The attack was comprised on going to Iran based on the great intelligence that we had, and you are totally right. It's of course based on our attacks on Iran after the October attack,
Right.
that took down all Iran strategic air defense. This we talked before. We took down all Iran strategic air defense, most of Iran facilities to produce new missiles and new UAVs. Not enough. We completed this part in this war. So I don't want to differentiate what was before. What was before, of course, what was a few months before is making sure that Israel can do this war or this sorties without the Iranian air defense giving us a lot of casualties.
Fantastic.
And it was not enough. We had a lot of small air defense batteries to take care of. There were many of them, tens of them around Iran, defending on all the government facilities and others. It took us about 36 hours, a day and a half, to clear everything. After the first, believe me, the first attack was under a lot of hazards, a lot of sweats that we took care of. But to make sure that we have a total air superiority above Tehran, just imagine it. Hundreds of Israeli planes are loitering about hours above Tehran property, and not only Tehran, Isfahan, and even Shiraz, 500 kilometers even deeper. And it's not only manned planes. We used a lot of unmanned planes that were the hunters to hunt the launchers of those missiles that were launched to Israel. Many of the launching of missiles from Iran to Israel were previously attacked before they were able to launch them. Of course, already they launched, but you saw that it came from 100 in the first day to about 20, and then to about 2, 3, 4 in the last few days. It's not because they didn't want. It's because they didn't have the power, because we destroyed almost everything they had. We destroyed many of the facilities to build new missiles. But this is on the missiles part. On the nuclear part, we attacked almost all the facilities. We left the Fordo one for future, hopefully, we didn't know then, hopefully a joining of the US and Trump, because this was a facility that it was much better attacked by the
B-2s.
power of the United States using the B-2s, the great bombers that Israel doesn't have, and of course the MOP. We call it the mother of all bombs, but you know it's have another name in English. It was a great success, and believe me, don't hear all this intelligence assessment.
All of this, you know, the wiping out of their anti-aircraft, and then the assassination of their key military leaders, required a huge amount of intelligence to know where they would be, or to get them into a bunker, to trick them to go into a bunker and then bomb the bunker. So what role did Mossad play in this entire campaign?
And again, I don't want to go into the fight between Mossad and the IDF. The Mossad have its own role to bring a lot of, intelligence, but the program that, again, before I couldn't even talk about it in your episodes. Remember, I told you all the time we met that we need to take care on all parts of the nuclear program, the fissile material, the weaponization, and the missiles. And in the weaponizations, one of the parts is the people that are doing it. And we didn't go into too details because I couldn't breach the security level. Now we we are out with this program that the Israeli name was Narnia. It
right.
went out, so I can talk about it. It was, believe me, it is more than 10 years of working, gathering intelligence, understanding how you can do it or not. It went out even, the head of this group was interviewed, from his back, without, of course, seeing him and explaining how many people worked on this program. You cannot do it without a lot of intelligence. Some of the intelligence came from Mossad.
The what we're talking about, the Narnia operation, was the operation to assassinate the key scientists involved in the
Yes.
weaponization of this fissile material. It's one thing to get all this material, very difficult, centrifuges, years of work to spin it down to get it to bomb grade. But then the next very, very complex technical task is to put this fissile material make a bomb out of it. And it's not so simple, very complex physics and everything. So Israel's Mossad, I think Mossad, had been following these scientists throughout their career, perhaps. I mean, Jacob will tell us. So we knew exactly who the top scientists were who would weaponize this material. We knew where they lived. And as I understand it, Jacob, you tell me if I'm right or wrong, each one was killed in their own home at the same time while they were sleeping. That's what I had heard. You tell me if that's pretty much what happened. They had to be killed at the same time, otherwise they would hear about it and go into hiding. So that's what I heard. Is that correct? Did Mossad actually assassinate them in their home?
Again, Dr. Bob, you put down all the key points. With something that I have to change and make it clear. It is, and it was, a joint cooperated work between the Mossad and the IDF.
Okay.
Long time ago, according to foreign press, the Mossad assassinated Fakhrizadeh. He was the head of the weaponization group, and he was killed a few years ago. And then his successor was killed in the last attack. Now, the attack itself, I don't want to go into who brought more intelligence, the IDF, the 8200, the analysis group, and other people in the Mossad. Believe me, it was a teamwork between the IDF and the Mossad. Now, there are many stories about how we killed those scientists, and you pointed it very, very accurately, that we needed to do it simultaneously together with the other attacks, because we understood that the moment the rumor will go out that Israel is now attacking and killing leading scientists and leading military commanders, they will go away and run. The attack itself, we used many kind of weapons and capabilities that some of them I cannot go into it, but I don't like when someone says it's only Mossad. I don't like when someone says it's only IDF.
Okay.
Believe
Understood.
me, I know some of it.
Understood.
It's a cooperation. It's a orchestrated theater meant operated together by the IDF and the Mossad.
Okay,
I don't want to go into what part is every one of them.
Right. Well, we like to think about Mossad because we've seen a lot of movies about spies. But as I understand
it's not always correct.
Yeah, but as I understand it, we also have an organization in the Air Force called Shaldag, which has operators on the ground in these kinds of things. Okay, so next, on June 23rd, just a few days ago, President Trump unilaterally and seemingly without consultation with either Israel or Iran, announced a ceasefire. So Israel and the U.S., we were clearly winning the war. Why didn't Trump let Israel finish the job?
And again, you mentioned what happened. I have to change one thing. I don't think that President Trump could announce these announcements without cooperating it and getting the yes from Israel and from Iran. Now, don't ask me if he got the answer yes by pushing a very, very important vein in the head of these two leaders and making sure that if they are not saying yes, this vein is not going to produce more blood to their brain. And again, it's all, just to give the picture. I'm sure that maybe Israel wanted to move 2, 1, 3, 4 days more, but the ceasefire is in a very good point in our attack. The IDF and the Mossad, but mostly the IDF, completed exactly what the war plan was, and believe me,
okay.
much more. You just said before, with no casualties, no plane down, no pilot down. We just lost 4 UAVs, and believe me, those 4 UAVs, only 2 of them were taken down by the Iranian fire. 4 UAVs in, as you said, hundreds, maybe thousands of sorties, 1,500 kilometers from Israel.
Amazing.
So it's amazing. And again, the decision of Trump doing a ceasefire in this point, I think it was a good point for Israel. I'm not sure it was a good point for Iran, but they gladly joined because they were begging for a ceasefire for almost 10 days. In this point of time, I don't want to argue if it was better 1 day later, 2 days later, 1 day earlier. It doesn't matter. We are now going to a ceasefire. But the most important thing is that, yes, President Trump announced a ceasefire on both sides, and both sides agreed. The bigger question is, and he did it without going into details, like Trump likes. The question is, what will be next?
Right.
What
right.
All
right, wait. I'll get into that.
Good.
There is currently a lot of discussion in America about the effectiveness of America's B-2 bombing of Iran's nuclear facilities. So a lot of talking heads are saying, well, it wasn't effective, they didn't destroy anything, and the fissile material has been moved out. So what's your understanding? Did we eliminate Iran's ability to develop nuclear weapons or not?
To say eliminated, or I heard a new English word I didn't know before, obliterated. I don't like to use those kind of words, because we hurt very, very, very much both the nuclear program and the missile program. To eliminate it, again, you have to kill so many people and so many facilities, but I don't like some of the rumors or some of the interesting people inside the US and some of it also inside Israel saying, oh no, it was nothing, 3-4 months, everything will go again. No way. The B-2 bombing, 12 MOP bombs on Fordo Com facility and 2 other bombs on the facility that maybe this enriched uranium was there, were a great success. Ask me if it's a 100% elimination of the facility. You cannot do it unless you maybe they needed to use, I don't know, another 20 bombs, and I'm not sure it will do a big change. It's a big destruction for this facility, and it's more important. We have to make sure that no one will be able to go and to reach and to come into this facility to try to do things. Now about this, I'm not going to leave these questions behind me. About this 409 kilo of enriched uranium that you remember we talked a lot about, that without dealing with them, we are not finishing the program, because we have to deal with the fissile material, we have to deal with the enriched uranium, and then we have to deal with the weaponization that we did very, very good. These 409 kilo were in underground tunnels in Isfahan for many, many, many months. They used to move them. Now, since this knowledge of the intelligence that they were in Isfahan, three things could happen. And believe me, everyone that is giving you now answers and what happened is guessing. I'm not sure that even the people that are responsible for this intelligence knows exactly all the details. But it could be that the 409 left in Isfahan. It could be that part of it or all of it were moved a few days before the attack to Fordo. Maybe they thought that Fordo is more protected than Isfahan, but believe me, in Isfahan it was also in a very, very deep protected tunnels. And then there is the question, did they remove some of all of these materials from Fordo before the American attack? This 409 kilo can be now in three different places: under the rubbles of Isfahan, under the rubbles of Fordo, or in some warehouse or place that the Iranians took some of it or all of it. I probably believe that if they did it, it's only a small amount of it, 10 or 20%, but this was the assumption. But even so, for sure the intelligence, if they don't know already, they will know in the future where those materials are, and they will take care of it. So believe me, those 409 were very important before. Today we have to understand what is the meaning, and this is why I didn't like the DIA report. They said that the Iran is 3-4 months from a bomb. It is a wrong message that coming out from an intelligence facility or intelligent establishment. They took the worst case of the worst case, and even so, they didn't say the truth. The worst case of the worst case is that there are enough fissile material that enriched to 60%. They maybe have enough centrifuges that were stored in some warehouses. They can take this to a clandestine facility and maybe come to an enough 1 or 2 bomb 90% enriched uranium. I'm sure that Israel and US won't allow them, but maybe. So what? This is not a bomb.
Yeah.
You have to take from this bomb, and as you just mentioned before, you have to make from it a warhead. Now, the facility in Isfahan that are doing the back conversion, because in Isfahan there is a conversion facility that take the yellow cake in the beginning, make from it a gas going into the beginning of the enrichment facility, and then at the end, when you have an highly enriched uranium, you take it, you go to Isfahan again, and you do a reverse conversion, so making from this enriched uranium something that you can make from it a uranium metal that is a very, very important part of building the warhead. There are many other things to build a warhead, not only the uranium metal. You have all the things that the scientists that Israel killed during this attack were involved in, and we saw them doing some of those working under an umbrella of an academic research something for civilian use enrichment. So this is the real truth about these materials and about Fordo and Isfahan.
Okay, so, but, you know, a ceasefire means that the mullahs are still in charge of Iran, and they clearly have not changed their long-term goal of destroying Israel, death to Israel, death to America. They will likely, lick their wounds and then attempt to rebuild the military to achieve their goal of nuclear capability. So given that, the only way to end the risk to Israel isn't the only way regime change? Isn't that the only way that that we can stop worrying about this?
Dr. Bob, you're coming again. Looks like you know all the material. You're coming again to a very, very important question about the future. We have a ceasefire. Now, the question is, what kind of a ceasefire we will have? The good one, if we can achieve it, is the ceasefire in what I call it the Hezbollah model that we have now in the north, that when we see an imminent threat, we don't have to ask anyone. There is three partners there, the US, the French, and the Lebanese, that are overseeing the ceasefire. But if there is an imminent threat, we see some Hezbollah bringing weapons or going to trying to go to a destroyed weaponization facility. We are killing them. We did more than 200 attacks already under the ceasefire without any reaction of the Hezbollah. So, assuming we have something like this with Iran, wow, it will be great. I'm not sure it will be so simple, but this is the concept that should work. Because I'm sure that, of course, if we see the, I don't know, enriched uranium moving, or people are trying to come back to Fordo or to Natanz or to Ispan and try to rebuild it, we'll have to do something. This is something that we will have to discuss with the United States in the coming days. Now, about your question about the mullahs. Yes, there are mullahs in Iran. The big one is Khamenei. Believe me, he's looking around and he's crying. When I'm not sure he went out from his 100-meter bunker that he was staying there all over the war, making sure that his life is safe. But he's going out, looking around. All of his friends, all of them, no matter if they are from the military, from the IRGC, and even from his political chain, most of them are out. They are dead. So you have to look around and see what he built. Now, we talked about the regime change. Believe me, it was very clear declared. We, Israel, we didn't have, and the same, I think, the US. The regime change was not one of the war goals.
Right.
Of course, what you said is totally correct. If someone wants a definitely long-term decision or solution to this nuclear threat from Iran or other countries like Iran, the only way to prevent it for long range, for long time, for long endurance, is by making sure that the regime, that the government of this organization does not want a nuclear program. Because while they will continue to say this nuclear program is part of our national plan, is part of our national security, that they'll continue to work on this program. And while they are continuing working on this program, it's becoming again a threat to Israel. And while it is a threat to Israel, Israel will have to move and to make sure that we are doing something with this threat. Fortunately enough, now it's a message outside. The message is outside. The United States joined the war against nuclear Iran. The decision of President Trump, the very brave decision, and as you said, he took it unanimously, alone, almost alone, talking with his advisors. Some of them told him yes, some of them told him no. This is an internal problem or decision inside the US. But he took the decision, and he attacked the nuclear facilities and the nuclear program of Iran. This declaration is out. US is not going to allow Iran to become a nuclear country. Together with Israel, but US is leading, and we like it when they are leading, especially in this threat, because we are telling for many years that the nuclear Iran is not a threat only on Israel. Nuclear Iran is a threat of the world, together with a threat on all American citizens. Having an intercontinental ballistic missile with a nuclear warhead on its head, it's a very, very, very threatful, like North Korea, like other countries that have a plan. With Russia, with China, there are superpowers, there are agreements. It's always a threat, but it's not like having a nuclear bomb and missiles in a country that that is controlled by mullahs, that their logic is not the same of the logic of every person. So we have to make sure that the Iranian future government or people that are ruling Iran will understand. Hopefully, I'm not sure it will happen. They will understand that it's better to take the human resources and natural resources and capability of the great Iranian people who don't have anything with the Iranian people. They are great people. Their problem is their rulers and their leadership. If they will decide to change the leadership, and you call it regime change, okay, let's call it regime change. It's not part of the war goals of Israel and the US. We didn't announce, we want to see a regime change as part of this war. But if it will happen, very good. The war brought some more goals that we didn't put on the table.
Regime change would be wonderful. To have a peaceful country, to have a country run by leaders whose goal is not to kill us. That would be fantastic. So,
exactly.
And we had that, when the Shah was in charge, they were an ally of Israel, an ally of America. Now, what can Israel and possibly the U.S. do to help a regime change occur? Now, it can't just be the people rising up in the streets. It doesn't happen that way because they have no weapons. All right, you can't throw out, rulers of a country when they have all the weapons and they have the military and they have the police. I think it's impossible. So what possible things could the Israel and U.S. do undercover to help the people? Now, there must be military groups in Iran who don't like the theocracy. There must be some of those. So I'm not saying we should, but what could be done to help a regime change occur?
Look, I waited for this question. Now, this talk that we just did for almost an hour, I couldn't do with you in the first or second episode before the war, because many of the things that I just talked about were not public area. There was not something that we can talk to the public. It was all classified information that now, after the war, is revealed. I cannot talk. When I'm saying I cannot talk, it doesn't mean that we have it or we don't have it. But
right.
What Israel or US or other people like you, and like, you see the Israeli organization, FDD behind, right. There are things that maybe can be done. And as you say, exactly, they are undercover. So things that are undercover, if you talk about, are not undercover anymore. So I think that we have to leave the talking about what we should do in order to help a regime change in Iran. Let's leave it in the dark. Let's leave it in the places that we are not talking about. And maybe it will happen, maybe not. When I'm talking about this, doesn't mean that Israel is doing something about it or not. This belongs to the things that, for example, if you would ask me 2 weeks ago about what is Narnia program, I would kill you. So, because you know this word. So what I mean is that there are areas that it's not time yet to talk about. Maybe there will be time to talk about it in, episode 222 of Dr. Bob System. And when something like this will happen, I think that the people of Iran, they are very, 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 well-trained, well-learned, very, very sophisticated academy and industry in Iran. They should understand that instead of having a flourishing Iran, one of the best economics in the world, believe me, it can happen because they have a lot of natural resources that they can use. But when you take more than 50% of your budget and spend it on supporting terror, building nuclear program, building your army, I hope some people, maybe some of the mullahs, I don't think so, because they don't see the real truth. Because look, Khamenei went out from his bunker or maybe inside, and declared that he is blessing the Iranian people on the big victory on the Israeli and the US. Now, leave the nonsense out. You know that you have suffered a lot. You know that people in Iran were killed. You know that Iran is now in a very, very, very devastating situation. And he declared a victory. So, of course, if it will be Khamenei, I don't see any good things coming out of it. Now, again, I'm not calling to do something about Khamenei. There was a debate if Israel wanted to kill him, not want to kill him. I don't want to go into this debate. It's a political debate. But I think that the Iranian people should understand what happened to their country, and it's in their hand to decide what will be the future of this really important country. They can be one of the, they have a lot of historical sites. I wish I could go and do a visit in Tehran. Today I can do a one-way ticket visit in Tehran. But I wish in the future there will be, many Israelis lived in Tehran in the 70s. They helped Iran economy. Iran bought many things from Israel, and it was a big exchange between Israel and Iran until the Islamic Revolution in the late 70s. So I'm not calling for regime change. I will be very glad if there will be a regime change, but it should come from inside.
Of course.
It should not come from the outside.
Right. Okay, let's move on, Jacob, to the effect that this war is having and will have on neighboring countries. Now, I've been told that in the Arab culture, a lot of respect is given to what's called the strong horse. Now, Israel is clearly now that strong horse in the Middle East. So how do you envision the other Arab countries responding to Israel's military success? And let's take them one by one. Start with Lebanon. What is the likely near-term effect in Lebanon of Israel's success?
Okay, I will answer your question, but allow me to do it in another order. First of all, you're totally right. The first line in Israeli national security strategy that Prime Minister Netanyahu is using every time, the first line is, in the Middle East, the weak one does not survive. If you want to survive in the Middle East, in the jungle, we are a villa in the jungle, everyone wants to go enter our villa. If you want to survive, you have to be strong. What happened now in Iran? We proved that we are strong. We are not just talking. We know how to operate and take action when needed. Of course, it will affect on the Middle East and everyone around us. Everyone understands the power of Israel, our capabilities, our technological capabilities, our ingenuity in inventing new things. It's, starting in the academy, Technion, Tel Aviv, Jerusalem, others, and in the IDF, the DDR&D and others. It's all around us, Mossad, IDF, Air Force, intelligence, everyone. So everyone understands that don't bother, don't go into fight with Israel. It won't be good for you.
Right.
The first country that we have to talk about, it's not Lebanon or Syria, but we'll come to them, of course, and Saudi and others. The first one is the Hamas in Gaza. Look, we finished almost all the problems are finished. We are in a good position with concerning all the problems around us, but we still have this problem in Gaza, and this problem in Gaza mostly is because of the hostages, that we still have 50 of our people still there, and we don't want to do actions like in other places that will endanger their life. But I think that if I was a Hamas leader now, and the problem is that there are not many leaders left. We just killed yesterday one of their last really influential leaders in Gaza, just was killed, I think, today or yesterday. Now, but if I was the Hamas leader, and I look what happened in Iran, I'll tell myself, look, we have to do a deal with this country. So I hope, because he looks around and, his patron is the one that gave him money, training, food, everything, weapons, knowledge, is not there anymore. It's there, but I don't think Iran first priority now when they'll try to recuperate will be to continue supporting terror. I hope they are not going to do it. I'm not sure because Iran logic is not the same as the normal people logic. But if I was a Hamas, I would go now to an agreement with Israel. Lebanon is a good example because they are now understanding the meaning of power. They understand what happened to them. They are in a very, very devastating situation. The country is totally ruined. They need a lot of money to spend in order to become again a country. The good thing here is that we see a starting of the government and the Lebanese army understanding and doing things against the Hezbollah group that are still there. There are still a lot of Hezbollah. They had 200,000 missiles. Assuming we eliminated 120, 130, they still have one of the biggest arsenal of missiles in the world. But they are not doing anything. When Iran called them, they didn't answer the phone. So, of course, if I was an Iran ruler, I would never put the money. You belong to the industry. You always say ROI, return of investment. The ROI of Iran investments in Lebanon came out as a very bad investment. The same goes for Syria. Assad regime is down. All the money that Iran gave to the Assad regime for many, many years and to support his army, together or not together with Hezbollah, is out. I don't know. People are saying that maybe Syria will be the next country that will join Abraham Accord. I don't believe it's coming tomorrow, but if they will show that they are serious in running for a peace and not for war, why not? But we have still to remember that this Al-Julani Ashara, that he called himself today, he is a terrorist. He grew up from Al-Qaeda.
Right.
And then I'll go around us. The Saudis understood that it's good to do business with Israel. I think that the progress with Saudi, again, because we are very close, some people say even Sinwar, it was one of his reasons to go on October 7 was he saw the situation between Israel and Saudi coming to a peace agreement. I don't know if this was one of his reasons, but Saudi, I think the progress will happen after we will solve the problem in Gaza, because they have an internal problem. While there is a war in Gaza, they cannot show themselves as part of an agreement with Israel. And when the Saudis will do something, believe me, all the Gulf countries around them will join this peace process. And again, I'm picturing here something for the heaven in the Middle East. Who knows? Maybe we'll have good years coming after some very, very, very bad years. But what happened in Israel? What happened now in the war? What happened in the last 2 years? When we will finish the war in Gaza, and believe me, Dr. Bob, we should do it, but we should do it when we get back all of our 50 hostages. We cannot leave them there. So it's in the end of the Hamas to decide they are going to give them to us in a deal that probably will spare their lives. They'll go out of Gaza,
right,
and maybe the reconstruction of Gaza can start. But all the other countries around us, all the Arab countries, they want peace with Israel. They still have the Palestinian problem. When the war in Gaza will finish, people will see that there are no Palestinian problem. We can solve it in many, many other ways, not only by declaring a Palestinian state. I don't think Israel can do it, not with this government, and I'm not sure it's good for Israel. But peace is very good for Israel, with everyone around us. And I think what happened that we are talking about in the last hour can help bring peace to our region.
Jacob, thank you for spending time with me today to share your very timely knowledge about the war between Israel and Iran and the effect on the Middle East. And thank you so much more for the sound advice that you have given and that you continue to provide to key decision makers in Israel and in the United States. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me in your show. And I hope that we gave to the audience and for everyone that want to know what's really going on in Israel after the war, a good view of what is going on. Thank you very much, Dr. Bob, and everyone that is involved in your initiative to bring these episodes alive. Thank you.
And thank you again for this, your third episode with us, and I think there's going to be a fourth, Jacob. Good evening.
Maybe. Okay, thank you. Bye.
Thank you for watching. And if you enjoyed this episode of Life Lessons with Dr. Bob, please subscribe and you'll be automatically notified of future podcasts in this series.
Thanks so much for listening to another episode of Life Lessons with Dr. Bob. If you enjoyed these interviews with some of today's most influential thought leaders, please follow and rate the show on your favorite podcast platform. And don't forget, you can also watch each episode on YouTube as well. We'll see you next time.